Okay, fantastic. Welcome everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us today. So this is our first of two webinars that we're doing in conjunction with England Hockey. And today we're going to talk about how you could save costs on sports lighting energy. So before we get started, just a little bit of basic webinar protocol for those of you who may not have used Zoom before. So all of the participants are muted. If you have any questions, please put them into the Q&A section, which should be on your screen. But there's also the chat function, so you can say hello to everybody. And after the session, we're going to send up a follow-up email with a link to the recording so you can re-watch, or you can forward on to any colleagues who you think this may be interesting too. And we're also going to have a link to register to our upcoming webinar in 4 weeks' time. And at the end of this session, I'll tell you a little bit more about that and what we're going to cover. So thank you very much, everyone. Today, we're going to obviously do some introductions to our brilliant presenters that we've got on. For those of you who don't know Midstream Lighting, we're going to do a little bit of an introduction just to tell you about ourselves. And then we'll get into the main presentation where we talk about sports lighting energy costs. We'll do a quick little poll at the beginning just to see what systems everyone's got. And then we'll go into the main bit talking about LED and how you can reduce costs. We'll talk about maintenance and payback times and how also control systems can help you to reduce your energy costs. And then we'll look at what's changed in the LED market in the last 1 to 2 years. And finally, we'll have an example from a real life hockey club who made the switch to LED and just show you what they're saving and what that could look like for you. And of course, at the very, very end, we'll have questions. Great. So first off, everyone, my name's Sophie and I work in marketing here at Midstream Lighting and I'm your host today. First, we've got Patrick. Patrick, would you like to introduce yourself to everyone?
Thanks, Sophie. Yes, hello, everyone. So my name is Patrick Daly. I'm the National Sales Manager for Sport at Midstream Lighting. I've been in the industry for 10 years, 3.5 years at Midstream, and I look after sports projects predominantly in the south of the country from sort of Birmingham downwards. And my role within Midstream is to look at the best solution to meet the specific needs of each facility from the very initial point of contact through to completion.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Patrick. And Joe, if you don't mind introducing yourselves to those who don't already know you.
Hi, welcome everybody. My name's Joanna Hawley. I'm obviously from England Hockey. I'm one of a small team of facility development managers, and my region is southwest, south and southeast. Sorry, south central and southeast. So yeah, welcome all.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Joe. And Sam, if you'd like to introduce yourself to everyone.
Hi everyone, hope we're all doing well. My name's Sam. I'm a sales executive at Midstream Lighting, and I deal with the north upwards, so anywhere north of Birmingham, East Midlands. I've got about 8 years experience in the industry and I've been at Midstream just up on 2 years now. And like Patrick, I look to support clubs from the very start, outreach, looking what you've got in terms of system, all the way through to the installation and getting a new system put in place.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Sam. And last but by no means least, Simon, if you'd like to introduce yourself to those who don't know you.
Hi all, yep, Simon Dowdy. I am the other half of the small facility team that we have at the moment with Joe. I look after the East London region and the East Midlands. And I should say that at the moment we're a man down. We will be looking to recruit, but we've also, Joe and I at the moment are also looking after the Northwest, Yorkshire and Northeast and West Midlands. Thanks.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Thank you very much, Simon, and welcome to all of our panelists as well. Thank you very much for today. So for those of you who don't know us, we're Midstream Lighting, and we're a specialist manufacturer of LED sports, maritime and aviation lighting systems and solutions. Our design experts have been working on sports projects with high-powered LED solutions since 2010. We have an R&D facility based in Italy, and our head office is here in the UK. We've got a couple of other offices around the world. We manufacture all of our lighting products here in the UK and in Romania. And we would think of ourselves as specialists, not generalists, because we really focus on those key areas. So for sports and our sports customers, we really help them to reduce their energy consumption, minimize environmental damage, cut their maintenance costs, and all whilst vastly improving the quality of their light. And we don't just offer products, we offer solutions. And part of that includes the lighting design, the maintenance packages, training and education, consulting, and also finance packages. And our aim is not just to be a manufacturer, but also to be a thought leader within the industry. And we do that by offering training sessions like we are today and webinars to help people within the industry grow and make the best decisions for them. And obviously why we're here today is because we're the official lighting partner of England Hockey, and we're really proud to have partnered with them since 2021. And together we've worked on over 27 different hockey projects throughout the UK, and hopefully there'll be many more. So everybody, before we get started, we'd just like to know a little bit about what everyone has at the moment, if you've got older lighting systems or what you've got. So in a minute, a poll is going to pop up on the screen. Okay, a poll should have popped up for everyone. I'm just going to give everyone a minute to vote. Okay. I can see the votes popping up. I'll just give you another 30 seconds. Okay, fantastic. So everybody should be able to see those results now. So as we can see, about 30% of you have got older systems like metal halide, another 20% have got older, so that could be sodium, halogen, all other types of older systems. And for those of you who aren't sure, it's probably likely that you've got one of those. So fantastic that most of you don't have LED. So that means that there's a good chance that you could make some real good savings by switching to LED. So everybody, now I'm going to hand over to my colleague Patrick, who's going to take you through and tell you a little bit more about LEDs and how you can make savings. Over to you, Patrick.
Thanks, Sophie. So why LEDs? So let's start by talking sort of very fundamentally. LEDs are a very different way of lighting to your more conventional systems. So things like metal halide, which a lot of you seem to already have, and those are not sure probably also have metal halide systems. So when we're talking about metal halide, it's a high intensity discharge gas lamp. So it generates light by running electric arc for a gaseous mixture. So in this case, metal halides, and that produces that lovely white light that we like to see in sports lighting. Then LEDs came along, and that generates light very differently. So we run electric current in one direction through a diode. The atoms on the one side become charged with energy that released in the form of electrons to the other side, and that release of energy is in the visible wavelength of electromagnetic spectrum, and that hence why we call them light emitting diodes. Now, the reason why that's important, and in practical terms, what that means is it takes a far less energy to generate the equivalent amount of light for LED than it does with a conventional metal halide system. The other advantages are that if you refer to the diagram on the slide, light is projected to the area that we want it. So you might have heard the term, it's LED lighting is more directional, and that's what we mean by that term. So with metal halides, light is emitted in every direction, 360 degrees, not just on the area that we want it on the playing surface. So that's illustrated with those black arrows on the illustration. So light is going everywhere, whereas with the LED we're just pointing it at the pitch only. So it's efficient in that way as well. And what that means is we're reducing the impact on the environment, less wastage, less CO2 emissions, and we're also reducing those running costs. So the electricity charge, that you pay bills are coming down considerably more for those reasons. If we move on to the next slide, we'll talk a bit more about some of the other benefits as well. So warm-up times for those people here that are responsible for turning the lights on, no doubt you'll be very aware of this. So normally when with your metal halide systems or older systems, you're turning them on 20, 30 minutes before you actually need them, because you need to allow enough time for them to get up to temperature to in order to get the maximum output. Whereas with LED, we remove that need. So you turn them on, you get the 100% output straight away. So there's an additional energy saving or benefit with that as well. Another thing we see often whenever Sam and I go to sites is, depending on how it's cabled up, you might find that you've got a couple of switches. So one switch will light one half of the pitch, another switch will light the other side of the pitch, and there'll be a sign saying wait 30 seconds between turning on each side, and that's to do with inrush and the system being cold and not overloading the system. So again, with LEDs, there isn't that initial inrush, so you can turn them on all at the same time without having to stagger it or risk overloading the system. So it's safer in that sense. And then the other thing is once you've turned the metal halides on, what you can't do is if once you've turned them off, is turn them back on straight away. There's normally like a cool down period. So what that means is when you turn them on for the night, in the middle of winter, 3:30, 4 o'clock, you're leaving them on through the whole evening up until 9, 10, whenever your planning permission allows. And if you've got a gap in your bookings, you don't risk turning them off. You just leave them all on. Whereas with LED, if you turn them off, you can just turn them straight back on again. So there's none of that waiting period. So there's some additional benefits there in terms of energy usage, etc. With as you might expect with LEDs, longer lifespan. So we've put there 5 times longer. In reality, we'd expect it to be much longer than that even. So there's fewer parts to fail for a start. So we haven't got lamps, igniters, ballast, that type of thing that you would with a conventional system. You've got a series of LEDs and a driver. The fittings are made up of hundreds of little LEDs in order to generate that light. Whereas a metal halide system, it's a single lamp. So if that lamp fails, that's it. The whole fitting is out. Whereas if one of the little LEDs fails within a fitting, it might be 0.5% of the output is affected. It's a minimal. So far more reliable, far less maintenance. As a result of all of that, you're looking typically returns within 4 to 5 years. I've known examples where it's even been quicker than that, and that depends on your existing setup. So 350 lux, typically we're talking about in hockey, 500 lux, how many lamps you've got, how often you use the facility, cost of electricity, that type of thing. But 4 to 5 is typically what we expect in most cases. And then the other thing we haven't touched about yet is the superior light quality. So we can maintain those lighting levels. So again, with hockey, we're typically talking about 350 lux. We can maintain that 350 lux for much longer, because the depreciation of the luminaires is a lot less than what it is with a metal halide system, for example. Also, we're not having to rely on reflectors to redirect that light that's going in the wrong direction back onto the pitch, and we can focus the light on the pitch and not just in the surrounding area. So it's more efficient, and we've got better and less light spill as well. If we could just move on to the next slide, what we'll do here is just run through a sort of, in very general terms, a typical example. So if we take our 350 lux system to 8 masts, 4 down each side, sort of 22 kilowatt lamps there or thereabouts. For an LED rehead, you might be talking about 32K, something like that. Now with your conventional system, maintenance costs to just get someone out to have a look at it, inspect it, check the aim and give it a clean, you might be around about £1,500 a year. And then on top of that, you've got all your consumables, so bulbs or lamps, capacitors, igniters that might need replacing, typically about £1,000 a year on average. And then your energy consumptions in terms of running the fittings, if you base it on a moderate 750 hours a year, 35p per kilowatt hour, you're probably looking to save around about £5,000 just on your electricity, just on a 1-for-1 replacement. And that's, we've been quite conservative with those numbers. So if we work on that principle, you'll find that after a 5-year period, well, you'll get a payback within a 5-year period. So that's purely on a 1-for-1 without talking about control systems or anything like that. So that's sort of how we work out that sort of 5-year payback. If we then move on to start talking about controls in a bit more detail, so the other thing that you can do with LED, which again you couldn't do with your conventional metal halides, is add a additional control element. Now, it tends to be, a lot of systems are you flick a switch and the lights come on, and there's very little else you can do with the system. Whereas with LEDs, we can introduce things like zoning. So where we say just like half the pitch, or if you've got an 8-mile system, you can light it into thirds for training, or if you have 5-a-side going across the pitch. There's no reason to light the whole of the pitch if you've only got 1/3 in operation, or half of the pitch in operation. Equally with dimming, we can introduce with LEDs with training, for example, or other sports such as football. 200 lux is more than adequate. So that 350 lux is sort of as a match standard, whereas majority of the time, if you're playing other sports or if you're just training on it, 200 lux is more than adequate. And again, 5-a-side is 120 lux is the requirement. So you when you start factoring zoning and dimming on top of swapping your fittings over to LED, we're getting closer to, rather than just 50% savings, we're getting close to that 80-90% energy saving. And that's when you get those really big savings. If we move on to the next slide. So I just want to spend a bit of time just talking about what's changed in the last 12 to 18 months. Some of you may have already asked about LEDs in the past, and so it might be quite useful to get a better understanding of what's improved developed in that time. So as you might expect, outputs are now greater, so we can get more light, more lumens from a luminaire, from our chips, with the same amount of energy as we could before. Reliability has dramatically improved, so parts such as drivers' LEDs are now more robust, and also there's less demand on them, so we don't have to run the drivers as hard as we might have had to in the past. And all that means that they last longer, and we can pass that on to clubs like yourself by giving you longer warranties. So when LEDs first came out in the market, you might be lucky to get a 3-year warranty. These days, we would expect to offer a 10-year warranty standard. That's certainly what we offer with our product. And if anyone offers you less than a 10-year warranty, I would certainly question why that is. And it's quite an easy way of shortlisting any products that you are considering by just asking what the warranty period is. If it's not 10 years, then maybe look elsewhere. The other thing that's improved dramatically is control of spill. So if you look at the diagram on the slide, that white section is the bit where we want to be lighting. That's the pitch. That's the area we want to light. Those sort of lighter grey areas are that wasted light that's not useful to us. So upward light spill, backward light. And what we've been able to do is move the light away from those areas and more on the pitch to make it more efficient and reduce the amount of light spill. And then I also want to touch on size of fitting. So when we talk about size of fitting, we mean both in the actual weight of the fitting and in the surface area, or what we might have heard the term windage. So you might have heard others in the past talk about LEDs being very heavy, which is a big problem, certainly with other fittings, where if you're trying to use the existing mast and you have to replace the mast because the extra weight means that they're not suitable, and then the project spirals out of control and no longer becomes viable. So the advantage that we have with our LEDs is they're specifically designed to be similar in size, if not smaller than a conventional 2 kilowatt fitting that we typically see in hockey pitches. So in the vast majority of cases, we're actually reducing the head load and actually prolonging the life of the mast. So it's just to emphasise the fact that we're not talking about increasing weight loads we might have done in the past. And then I think that wraps up my part. So I'll hand back to Sophie to introduce the next section.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Patrick. That was really useful. And I hope all of you watching as well found that helpful. And if you have any questions about what Patrick's just covered, please put them into the Q&A box and we'll answer them after this next bit. So next up, we've got an example from a real hockey club who we did a project with. And I'm going to hand over to Sam, because Sam went through the whole process from start to finish with the hockey club. So he's got the best insights on it. Over to you, Sam.
Thanks, Sophie. Hi, all again. So yes, Telford and Wrexham Hockey Club originally approached us probably getting on for 18 months ago. And the reason they approached us was they had a couple of lights out, and they've been going through periods of every year, 2 years, spending money, getting someone in to come lower the masts, pay for the replacement bulbs, etc., etc. And they thought, well, now's the time maybe. And at the time, everything was happening with the world in terms of Ukraine, Russia, energy prices were going up. So they thought maybe it's time to look into LED. As I say, they reached out. We arranged a site visit, got down there, showing us the lights that were out. There was really, the club by their own admission are very much on it, but there was really wanting to get as much support from us and see what we could do for them in terms of the energy reductions and whatnot. So we went down. We also arranged for a mast inspection on this project because the masts are about 20 to 22 years old, something like that. And I know some of you may have some concerns with that, so we're happy to provide support from that aspect of it as well. Went down, provided a design, worked with the club through the project, provided obviously pricing, went through their expected cost saving calculations with them as well. So provided where the club would expect to be before and after, etc., etc. And as you can see on the slide, the club of they're saving 48% a year on their energy. It would have actually been more. It would have been about 53%, but due to the increase in lighting input performance and the running costs, they've actually took on more sessions, which then subsequently knocked it down slightly to 48%. But as I say, they're getting more usage out of the pitch, and that's just come from the lighting itself. With that and the additional usage, they're seeing a 5-year payback. So it worked out as a rough number. It was about 6,300, and that's what they were saving a year just on their energy alone. With the maintenance and whatnot, factor in another £1,000, for example, they're saving £7,000 a year, which for a club, I know that's a lot of money. But with that as well, they massively improved their lux levels. So I think at the time, due to the age of the system, the lux levels were averaging around about late 340s, 350s, depending on if they've recently had their new bulbs put in and whatnot. Now they're getting 397 average lux, which is well in line with England hockey and FIH requirements. And then, as you can see at the bottom as well, they've actually got some real-time data. So as I say, the club are quite on it, but they provided us with this real-time data of what they're actually saving. So you can see beforehand where the usage is basically double of what it is now, and then again, that's with the additional usage. We priced that as well. There are savings of 7k. That's on 30 pence per year. I know a lot of you now may be getting to the end of your contracts where you're getting quoted a lot more than that, or you're even maybe on more than that already. So your savings could be, depending on usage, you could be talking north of £10,000 a year. So it's definitely something that it'll pay back itself within that 10-year warranty that Patrick mentioned.
Great, thank you very much for that, Sam. Great example there from Telford and Wrexham. I just love that they actually recorded their energy usage, because quite often we say things like this, like you could save this amount, but it's nice to actually have some proof and to kind of show, like, look, this is what you could do. So next up, we're going to answer some questions that you guys have been sending in. Let me just have a look. So the first question we've got here is from Lisa. And the question is, what are the specific regulations or standards that LED lighting needs to comply with? I think maybe Joe or Simon, you're probably best fit to answer that as England Hockey.
I'm happy to take that, Simon, if you want, and chip in as needed. England Hockey recommend 350 lux for all of their pitches. There are some exceptions if clubs do a lot of televised recording and they want to play, kind of top level matches on, really in the evenings and things like that. They could go up to 500 lux, but the generals, our recommendations are 350, and that is in the majority of cases, especially where the sites are being on education sites. That's generally the requirement that's needed, but anything less is certainly not. And as Patrick alluded to earlier, football's requirements are slightly lower, so it's always worth checking if there's more than one sport playing on your facility, that if it comes to renewing the lights, that actually the specification meets 350 and not anything lower. So definitely having that knowledge is worth adding into any conversations with your leisure providers.
Brilliant, thanks, Joe. So next up, we've got a question from Denise. Denise says, how do LED lights handle weather such as rain and wind? And obviously we get a lot of that in the UK. Patrick, do you want to answer that one, please?
Yeah, happy to. Yeah, thanks for the question, Denise. Extreme weather conditions in the UK, we're typically talking about rain and high winds. So we've discussed briefly already about the size of fitting and reducing that windage, that surface area that the wind has effect on it. In regards to water ingress, that's a big problem in terms of fittings failing, metal haloed or LED, and there is actually a measurement of how good a product is at keeping water out of it. It's called an IP rating, ingress protection, and ours are rated very highly. I don't know if anyone else, I can't think of anyone else that has a higher IP rating on a product than ours. So, and you can look that up, that IP rating. Basically, the higher the number, the better. Ours is rated at 6.6. You'll find others maybe a bit lower, 6.5, something like that. But yes, there is a reason. There's a way of actually calculating or looking up on a data sheet, and that's probably the best way of checking that out.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Patrick. So we've got quite a few questions. So I'm going to try and squeeze them in. Obviously, anyone who needs to hop off, we are going to send this recording out afterwards. So I know we've already taken up half an hour of your time. If you've got busy schedules, don't feel like you have to stay. But for those of you who can, please do. We've got 5 or 6 more questions that we're going to go through. So probably another 10 minutes. So next up, our next question. So we've got a couple of similar questions, but one in particular we've got from James that says, how long would it typically take to replace traditional lamps with LED lamps? And is this a service we offer, or are we supply only? So yes, this is a service that we offer, but I will hand over to my colleague Patrick to answer in more detail because he knows a lot more than me.
Thanks. Yeah, no, so quite right. Yeah, absolutely. We could do a turnkey package. So yes, supply and install and commissioning. In terms of on-site, if we're talking about that 350 lux system, we will do it within a week, weather permitting. Yeah, it's not a long process. So very, very easy, and we can work around programs in terms of training sessions, things like that. But yeah, straightforward.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Patrick. And our next question, what is the maintenance schedule for LED lights? Paddy, do you want to take that one as well?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So when it comes to maintenance, it's very much based on the individual, and we can tailor it accordingly. So for some people, just don't want a maintenance package. So your 10-year warranty still applies. We don't make it subject to a maintenance package, and that's what you want to do, then so be it. Others like a maintenance package. And if you want to get the most and increase the length of your LEDs as much as possible, then a maintenance package is a good idea. It also means you can maintain the lighting levels for much longer as well. So for typically You wouldn't need as much maintenance as a metal halide system, but if you wanted to do a sort of a biennial, so once every other year, to give them a check over and a clean, just to make sure you're maximising the output, then by all means, that's a service we offer, and what you can do as well. So yeah, very much based on your own requirements and needs and wants.
Thank you very much, Patrick. So we've got another question from Mark, who's looking to get a quote, and he's asking about any grants that are available. So Mark, we of course can reach out to you after this session and we can arrange to get a quote together for you. We actually, in our next webinar, and that's very good timing, are going to cover a lot of these other questions that we've got. So we've got a question from Lee asking about what's the approximate cost of a lighting system, and we've got a question from Nick as well asking about the average cost of replacing masts. So in our webinar in 4 weeks time with England Hockey, we're actually going to talk through all of this. We're going to talk about what is entailed in a LED lighting upgrade. So everything from, do you need planning permission? What do you need to consider when switching? So the costs of masts, if you need new masts, can your current masts be used? How can we go about testing those? Electricals, all of that stuff. We're going to cover all of that in the webinar, and we're going to talk about costs as well. So please sign up. We're going to send out a recording after this and an email with a link for you to sign up for that. It is on the 15th of November at 7 p.m. Obviously, if you can't attend live, please sign up because we send out the recording afterwards anyway.
Sophie, just before, am I just okay to butt in quickly? Just on those individuals that had specific questions about funding and masts, by all means, if you we can take it offline. I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you over the phone one-to-one, and we can have the more detailed conversation about your specific facility as well. So yeah, by all means, happy to send me an email, etc., and we can arrange that.
Of course, yes. So as part of my next one, anyway, I was going to say, here is everyone's email addresses if you want to get in touch. But those of you who have asked questions about costs, either Patrick or Sam, depending on where you're based, will reach out and just give you a rough indication of what you could be looking at. But also join the webinar because we'll cover everything that you need to know and you need to consider. So thank you everyone for joining. It's been great. It's been a really informative session for me as well. And thank you ever so much to the guys at England Hockey for joining us and for helping out. And obviously to Sam and Patrick today for presenting, and very much for all of you watching. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.